Hello my brothers and sisters, this is Rick the Wealth Coach, and today you're going to learn that taxes are voluntary and that paying taxes is a voluntary act. You do not have to pay income taxes. It is not mandated that people have to pay income taxes. It is absolutely, positively voluntary. Alright, so let's get right into our story. We have an IRS agent and her name is Sherry Jackson, and she worked for the IRS for years. In fact, she was part of the fraud department. I want you to listen to part of this interview with this young lady and how she just comes and let the cat out the bag as to how she was getting people to pay taxes that they did not have to pay, and how she's going to explain to you about the fact that taxes are absolutely a voluntary thing. But let's first find out a couple of key words that you'll learn from her. All right?
I tried to be the best at whatever I did. So when I got to the IRS, I hit the ground running. My first year in 1988, I got the Fraud Award. It's a big Shaped in Georgia award for fraud. But I got numerous awards, and my biggest one is from the IRS commissioner himself. Back in 1995, it was Fred T. Goldberg. One of the things that I wanted to tip you off on as far as what the IRS does before I get into the story, they had, I don't know what they're doing now, but they had what's called a Market Segment Specialization Program, or MSSP. They would take different market segments, like ministers, and try to figure out how much money you were underreporting. Let's take beauticians, for example. I'm going to audit her beauty shop. She owns the shop and she has some people working there. Based on the assumption that the IRS has that people don't report all of their money, but they like to put all their expenses on there. So granted, all her expenses are on the tax return, and I figure out how many bottles of this and that she bought, I can calculate a dollar figure. So I'll tell Sophia, after it's all over and we're buddy-buddy, I just shock her and I say, well, guess what? It looks like, based on my calculations, that you really brought in $80,000, but you have $50 on the tax return. So here, you owe the IRS back $30,000. What would she do? She would sign off on it. I only had 2 cases in 7.5 years where somebody actually bucked at me. People are so afraid. The government and the media have gotten you guys so afraid of the IRS that you don't even buck them. Now, mind you, she might have left some money off. Maybe there was several times where she just didn't report the cash. And maybe that's why. Maybe she has no idea how much she, quote-unquote, underreported. Maybe that was it. But they always acquiesce. They got one, anybody own a laundromat, they have one that will calculate, based on your water bill, how many loads were washed at your laundromat. And the point to all of this is what they do to people, and people just acquiesce to it.
Did you hear what she said? She said, listen, most people just assume that you have to pay taxes. That's right, assume. And the IRS makes a lot of money off of people who do what? Assume and then assent. What is assent? Assent is silent consent. That means that you don't really believe in something, you don't really want to do something, but you go along with it, what? Out of fear and intimidation. For example, you remember how it used to be just for black people here in America. We used to have to get off the bus, walk around the side of the bus, and then we had to pay our fare on the front of the bus, get off the bus, walk around to the side, get on the back, and then just stand up while other people sat down, particularly white people sat down. And but back in 1955, Rosa Parks, in December of 1955, she stopped assenting. What is assent? That's silent consent. So she said, you know what, even though we're being intimidated, and even though we're going to be taking chances on our life, and even though people are trying to just force us into this barbaric way of living, we're not having it. So she said, I'm sitting down, I'm not standing up anymore. You're not going to force me you're going to have to get me off this bus. I'm not going to voluntarily do this anymore. Just like you don't have to, just like paying taxes is volunteer. They was volunteering, black people that is, was volunteering to give their seats up. You say, no, they weren't. They was being forced to give their seats up. No, because once they fought that illegal bill, you found out that the Montgomery bus system had to give in to them. Why? Because they were right and the Montgomery bus system was wrong. Well, you'll find the same thing out with the IRS. The IRS just assumes that you don't know no better, so they use fear. So what ends up happening is that you assume something, you assent to something, and then you acquiesce to something. As she just mentioned, the fact that the person just would go ahead on and acquiesce. Continue to listen to this video and you'll see how that Sherry ended up realizing that taxes were in fact voluntary after she had worked for the IRS and quit.
When I quit the IRS in 1995, and after maybe a year of being Jim Cleaver and realizing that that was just not me, I hung my shingle, which in accounting terms or business terms is you start your own business. Now, you know that picture of Uncle Sam, the one that says Uncle Sam wants you? I used that same picture and I had it really big and I says, Uncle Sam wants your money, but I'm a former IRS agent. I'm going to show you how to get it back. you know, the people came running. And then these people start coming to me saying, I keep hearing that we're not supposed to pay tax. Or I keep hearing that the tax law is a fraud. And like I said, I was raised differently. I never would look at that person and say, you're a cuckoo. I wouldn't even think it. It was like, okay, you know, in this back burner back here, I would think to myself, okay, there's some people out there that actually think that the income tax doesn't apply to us, or it's a fraud, or it's being misapplied. But I didn't do anything about it because, remember, I'm rolling around with my little businesses and whatnot. So one night maybe in early June, one of my pastor clients called. It was night. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And she said, you know what? I think it was maybe a Wednesday night, after her Wednesday night service. She said, I've got this parishioner that just keeps bugging me about this income tax. She's talking about that we're not liable for the income tax, and she wants to talk to you. Can I give this lady your telephone number? And I said, okay. So maybe about 10 minutes later, this lady called me. She said, I have a question for you. Are we supposed to pay income tax or not? And I said, okay. Do you want the cuffed answer or do you want the real answer? She said, I want the real answer. I said, well, I really don't know. You know, even though I'm a former IRS agent, I haven't done the research, but I hear that there's a credible body of evidence out there that says that we don't owe the income tax. I was okay. I mean, I took the information. I was sitting there listening like, okay. And, you know, I said, okay, this lady had a lot of information. I don't know where she got it from. So a few weeks later, she called me again and she said, Miss Jackson, remember that information I told you on the phone? It's in the USA Today. Pull it up on the internet. Okay, so I got the USA Today. It was July 7th, 2000. And it says, Dear we the people, most citizens are not required to file an income tax return. The 16th Amendment to the Constitution is a fraud. And if you file, you waive your Fifth Amendment rights. I said, okay, that's some of the stuff she was saying. Now, this is a lot of reading. But I kept reading because I was very interested, you know, being a CPA and into fraud and all that. I wanted to see what was going on. So here in the third column, it says no one has been able to collect the $50,000 reward offered by Bill Conklin to anyone that can identify the section of the Internal Revenue Code that makes a typical worker liable for the income tax. I'm serious about winning this $50,000. Okay, so it's at my desk. Basically, I just shoved everything off my desk and got the codes out, the regulations out, the tax guide. I got on the internet to look at the Cornell University site, all these different things, and I started researching. And 2 weeks later, I said to myself, oh my goodness, we have a problem here. It doesn't look like I'm going to win this money. And I was sitting there at my desk thinking, this thing is a fraud.
Wow, did you see that? Did you see what happened? All right, she had a meeting with a young lady from church, and the young lady came and revealed to her exactly what was going on. She found out that indeed, that paying taxes was a voluntary thing. And then she brought up this article. All right, here's the actual article that she brought up right here, and in the USA Today, back in July of 2000. And she says, listen to this. She says, most citizens are not required to file an income tax return. The 16th Amendment to the Constitution is a fraud. If you file, you waive your Fifth Amendment rights. I want you all to go and read that article for yourself. Okay, July of 2000, and you'll find that to be the case. You say, so where does that leave us, Rick? Well, we have some really good news for you and some even better news. The way that we operate is we operate out of tax-free, tax credit producing trust. What does that mean? That means that we don't pay any income taxes on any of the money we make. If I sell a house out of my trust, I don't pay any taxes. If I sell a car out of my trust, I don't pay any taxes. When I put my house in a trust, I don't even pay property taxes on the house. When I put my car in a trust, I don't even have to pay for the tags anymore. If I buy anything and sell it, I don't have any capital gain tax whatsoever. Why? Because paying taxes is voluntary. And when you get what we call this 508 ministry trust, which is what we have, you don't have to pay any taxes on any of the money, no matter how much you make. So you said, Ricky, I certainly want to learn how to do more of that. Well, all you have to do is just join us at our next Financial IQ Challenge at myfinancialiqchallenge.com. That's myfinancialiqchallenge.com, and we'll show you how it is that we operate. We'll show you how it is that every time you spend $1, and every time that you buy something, and every time you put it inside of the trust, and every time you sell it, you don't have to pay 1 penny of income taxes at all. We'll make you familiar with some laws. One law is IRC Code 6033A. That's IRC Code 6033A. We'll make you aware of that code, as well as several others that make us 100% exempt from taxes with our trust. We control everything. We don't own nothing. We are posterity people, and our money lasts for generation after generation after generation. It's been a plum pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege. I'll see you next time. And remember that stellar is as stellar does. I'll see you at the challenge.